complex numbers, when we take the square root of a negative number, remember, definitely want to think about this as square root. So no index like a 2, beyond a 2, so no 3s or 4s out there in terms of what we're trying to do as you guys learn about this. But we can take the square root of negative numbers by using the complex number I. And what that really is doing, I is the square root of negative 1. So if you think about it initially, to get negative 16, you'd have to do negative 4 and positive 4. Well, the issue there is they're not exactly the same, so you can't pull them out. So the mathematical way to approach this is we know the square root of 16 is 4, and since there's a negative underneath the root, you just put an I next to 4. So if you take the square root of a negative, what you need to realize is that you need to pull, this time, one of the things that you're going to pull out is the letter I. So negative 144. Well, we know the square root of 144 is 12. Since it's negative, you put the I. I don't know what this question mark is about right here, so you can ignore those. Negative square root of 8. Well, we don't have that one perfectly, but let's break 8 down. That's 4 and 2, 2 and 2. So we can pull out a 2, and it leaves a 2. But since there's a negative underneath, we also pull out an I. Same thing here. So this would be 4 times 5. So here we go, 2 and 2. So we can pull out a 2, and it leaves a 5. But since we started with that negative that's right there, we're going to pull an I out next to the 2. Right? So square root of 24. All right, we can start to break that down. 4 and 6. So that's 2 and 2. And then 3 and 2. So we can pull out one set of 2's. You can also pull out an X. And what's left behind are the 3 and the 2. So we left with a 6. And one thing that we got to slide in here as well, since there's that negative, it's best to put the I right next to whatever numbers you pull out. So it's 2I times X times the square root of 6. Here, 18, so we have 9 times 2. So square root of 3, or square root of 9 is 3. So we can pull out a 3. You leave a 2, and there's an I that comes out as well. Here, square root of 100, we know that one, it's 10. You have the y to the 4th, so 2 y's are going to be out. So nothing's left underneath. And then remember to squeeze that I in right next to your number. So a couple of practice problems. Again, square root of 100 is 10. Since it's negative, 10I. Square root of 36 is 6. Since it's negative, it's 6I. 28 is 7 times 4. So you pull a 2, you leave a 7, and there's an I. 48. So you got 12 times 4. 6 times 2. 2 times 2. 3 times 2. So you got one set of 2's, 2 set of 2's. So we're going to pull out a 4. 3 gets left behind. We can also pull out 1x. And since it's negative underneath, pull that I. 99 is 33 times 3. And then we have 11 times 3. So there's a 3 that comes out. And 11 gets left behind. 5 x's, which means 2 come out. 1 gets left. And again, we started with this negative underneath this square root. So we got to put I outside to get rid of the negative. All right. Square root of 144, that's 12. X can't do anything, but we can pull a y out. And since, again, we started with that negative, we pull an I out with a 12. So there's a few examples of simplifying the radicals with a negative underneath. And now, with complex numbers, it typically has two parts. There's a real part and an imaginary part. And that's why we use the letter I here. And it's written in the form a plus bi. Right? So really all we want to be comfortable with is being able to add and subtract them. And in all honesty, for you guys, it's just like combining like terms. If I could spell. Let me get off. Combining like terms. So we look here at the first one. You got a 3 and a 2, so that's 5. You have 1i plus 3i plus 4i. You got a 6 plus 8, well that's 14. You got 6i minus 3i, turns into 3i. Sometimes you're going to have to distribute a negative with these, and that's probably about as tricky as it gets. So again, so I don't get confused, I'm going to rewrite it. that 6 turns into minus 6, and that minus 3i turns into plus 3i. Now just combine like terms. So 4 minus 6 is negative 2. 2i plus 3i plus 5i. So a couple other examples on the next page. So you have 2 plus 3 is 5. 6 minus 4 is 2. So 5 plus 2i. You have 1 plus 9, which is 10. Negative 12 plus 1i is minus 11i. Here we have to distribute the negative. So again, I think it's worth taking a quick second to make sure I write stuff down the right way. So 6 turns into minus 6, and that minus 7 turns into plus 7. So combine like terms, you got your 5 minus 6, so that's negative 1. You have 3i plus 7i, so plus 10i. Notice that the I is always the last part of it. The imaginary comes second. That's the way that these are typically written. So again, we distribute a negative. So 2 plus 5i minus 3 plus I. So we have 2 minus 3 is negative 1. 5i plus I plus 6i. So that's how you come up with imaginary numbers when there's a negative on the square root, and then essentially combining like terms as you add and subtract imaginary or complex numbers.